5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hello and welcome everyone to Truth, Beer, and Podsequences. How did that opening sound? Was that cut off at the beginning?
A little. I didn't move the slider up fast enough, but it's good. You sound great.
Welcome everyone to Truth, Beer, and Podsequences. So this is a podcast where my co-host and I, we recap all the Cincinnati-based craft beer podcasts from the previous week. And hopefully there aren't too many consequences from the hosts of the other podcasts.
We kind of got dinged a little bit last week.
Yeah, we got a little bit of a ding.
A little bit of a ding.
And then, maybe something coming up. We'll see. Thank you to our gracious podcast hosts. Every week we get together at a gracious podcast host. This week we are back at Higher Gravity Summit Park. Thank you, Higher Gravity Summit Park, for being such a gracious podcast host.
Cheers to producer Jason for helping get us set up, and I believe producer Nick will be taking over here in a bit. Yeah. Fun night.
Fun night. And so I am Marco. I'm a taproom manager here locally. That other voice that you heard belongs to the best co-host in Podcastlandia.
I'm Julia. I drink the craft beer. I compile calendar entries. There are other things that Marcus says that I do. I edit the podcast. I write stuff for Beer Vent. And I just cause general mischief and mayhem.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, among other things.
Sure. There are always other things.
There's
like you do
things.
More than just taproom manage. You do other things drink.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there's something else. I just, it fails me.
Yeah.
We have a third voice tonight.
You do.
At least for a bit of time.
A little bit, yes.
A little bit. So, first-time guests introduce themselves, but you are not a first-time guest or even a second-time guest.
Correct.
You are like a... What would this be? Is this 4?
I think
4 or 5?
Three or 4.
Do we count the live episodes? See, we get into a whole range.
Well, we had to count it
of
for
what
Danny.
We count. That's true. We did count it for Danny.
Yeah. The live episode may have counted.
We'll just say he's a 5th-time guest. Because with the live episodes showing up here, BCs, you're probably...
I'm a regular.
Yeah, you really are. I think you are probably our most repeated guest.
Yes, there's
most repeated official guest.
Official, because there's been a producer that
sometimes I'm talking about like they're on mic, they're talking podcasts with us. If they're just sitting around hanging out, that doesn't count because they're not participating in the actual show. So, Joe, you are king. So welcome back.
I am the Michael Jackson. I'm the king of pop.
Yes, king of pop
of the German world.
Yeah. There we go.
There it is.
There we go. I love it.
Michael Jackson of German dancing.
There you go.
Before we get too far into the weeds, Mark, do you want to go over our disclaimer?
Yes.
For the people?
So the thoughts and opinions on this podcast are ours and ours alone. They do not reflect any entity that we may represent, such as our full-time jobs or Higher Gravity. If you have anything you want to discuss with us, reach out to us at our email address. And we will give that to you at the end of the podcast. That is for Julia and I. Joe can speak for himself.
I am not affiliated with you guys.
Smart.
I just showed up and you
had a microphone ready.
You shoved a microphone in my face.
Take this. You are now part of this, whether you want to or not.
Ready.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's almost like we had a little warning that someone would be showing up. Anyway, this is for all intents and purposes, a craft beer podcast.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be a good one if we weren't drinking some type of craft beverage.
Right. We're not like those fake ass ones that don't drink.
Just fake drinking day in and day out.
I think there's a couple of those that we might be talking about.
Oh, there are more than one.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah. Joe, you were gracious enough to buy Marco and I a belated birthday beer.
Thank you, Joe.
So Marco and I are both enjoying some lunch from Maine Beer Company. And it's so goddamn good.
Lunch for dinner.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Only thing that's better is breakfast for dinner.
Yes.
Or dinner for dinner. But that's few and far between.
Yes.
Yes. What about you? You picked out something interesting.
I picked out a non-alcoholic beer. It's by Untitled Art, and it's called Chocolate Milk, I believe.
Chocolate Milk Stout? Yeah. What do you think? It's one of my favorite NAs.
It's
from Untitled Art.
My mind has been changed, I think, on the NA front. In the non-alcoholic beer front.
In a good way, bad way? Like, I don't know what your thoughts were on it before, so I'm not... Or do you want to save that for an episode of your show where you
that
get
we're
to
going
dive
to cover
into.
next week.
It might. Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll cover it next week for sure. But you guys.
So teaser,
you're coming back.
Teaser.
Oh no, I won't be back.
No, I'm never coming back.
I'm
never coming back.
Not coming back.
No.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. All right.
But
well, I'm glad you're here after the shenanigans of what we're going to talk about next. Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
So, what do you have any thoughts on this NA beer in particular?
No, it's good.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But it's no secret. During Higher Gravity, famously gave us the NA beer. Mm-hmm. I think it was a Mexican lager or Mexican style lager. I forget. I did not enjoy that. That was an Untitled art one.
Yeah, there are some that are definitely much better than others.
Yeah,
and there's nothing wrong with that.
But Caroline purchased a mix pack, and we drank a few of those.
Nice.
And
from Untitled art.
From Untitled art. Yeah.
Oh, those.
Nice.
The majority of those are pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there was the American Gold. There was the Juicy IPA. The thing, regular IPA. And then,
did they have was it the Italian Pilsner?
Italian Pils, yep.
Yeah.
That one was.
So
that one was.
That you'll talk about that next week.
All right.
That one,
cool.
If I remember right, I thought I almost would say it slapped.
It was bussin'.
I don't know if it's.
You don't know if it's bussin'. It's been I'm sorry. It's been a while since I've had that one. But let's get into some podcasts because, Joe, you're not able to be here for the entire evening. So let's make sure that we make the most out of the time that you do have with us so that
definitely.
we get to go over things. The podcasts that we're going to talk about this week are the Craft Parenting Podcast, episode 100, the bottle share shenanigans that...
Still rehydrating.
Oh, my God. Still rehydrating from that one.
Still drinking lunch for dinner.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. It's there's water in it. It's technically, somewhat hydrating.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about a national podcast that it's my first time listening to it. The Brewbound podcast. They talked about Rhinegeist and the ownership changed. Or did they? We'll get into that one. Cincy Brewcast talking about non-alcoholic beers. There seems to be a trend going on right now, and that's fine. And then last night's episode of the Weekly Pint, which, it's a podcast now. It's not just a live Facebook show.
And just a tease for next week, we already know we're going to talk about Craft Parenting Pod, non-alcoholic. We already know we're also going to discuss the latest episode of Go Beer Cats.
Yes. Next week, we are definitely going to be covering Go Beer Cats because they talked about the 6 core Cincinnati IPAs, or what they think they are, just due to a timing thing and kind of a miscommunication.
My fault. No, it's my fault. It's clearly my fault. But anyways, yes.
So we'll cover that one next week to make sure that we both have it listened to.
Anything else, Julia?
I think that's all that I have as far as Cincinnati-based podcasts or podcasts that are based on Cincinnati beer. But we have a couple other things to discuss. There might be another one or two that pop in next week.
Yep.
We just have to make sure that we have our listening schedules synced for that.
Yes.
But let's dive right into Craft Parenting Podcast, episode 100.
Yes.
The Great Bottle Share.
Yes.
Or its subtitle, Julia stops saying, let's get back on track. I say that we, this isn't our podcast we're talking about. Joe and Caroline had an amazing, I guess so. I
am included in the we.
Okay, so I'll say we had a great group of people that got together.
And you did a really good job keeping people on track. I was just like...
Joe said the one, but was like, I'm done. So the people that were in attendance: Joe, Caroline, Tony, the Gnarly Gnome, Marco, myself, and Dippa Josh.
Yep.
Yeah. My God, it was great. It was absolutely phenomenal. There was no Google Doc for the episode. Or at least none that I saw.
No, it was blank.
Joe
it said Google Doc 100 episode, and then it listed who was there, and then it was blank.
And And that may or may not have been a good idea because Joe let us run wild, and wild we ran.
Yeah. There may have been some discussions about Thomas, the tank engine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And a little... May have been. It was in the first, 6 minutes.
This is true. It was off the rails, trains, before we even got started. Although we all also had more than one beer before we started recording, which could have been part of the problem.
We pre-gamed pretty hard.
We did.
I think someone may have gotten iced.
More than just someone's may have gotten iced.
Yeah.
And the Podsequences, they happened.
How many? They've iced me at least twice. Did they ice you at least twice? Now, that night I only got iced once, but Caroline showed up and iced me.
Yes.
Our last birthday, I think.
Because it was when we were at BC's, because she brought the brown paper bags with the home brew in it that she was giving to us.
She handed it to me. I'm like, this is nice, isn't it?
And she's just like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's sneaky like that. Pro tip, if you ever get together with Joe and Caroline for an episode, be careful.
Ask them to get you a beer.
Don't get it yourself. Oh my God, there was a lot of talk about muffin tins and bottle shares.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you don't know, that's when you take a muffin tin to a brewery. If they have more than like their typical flight board worth of beers that they're releasing, and they pour a little bit into each muffin tin, and God help you as you try to drink it without spilling a drop.
Yes.
Some say a straw is the professional way to
drink it from a straw.
Yeah.
Yes.
I loved it.
It's like that play, Once Upon a Mattress. It was the whole challenge.
Once Upon a Muffin Tin.
Once Upon a Muffin Tin. It's like, you know she's the one to marry if she can
do it, yeah.
Drink out of
Tony was very
tin.
concerned about that. He was like, okay, wait a second, a muffin tin, how is this supposed to work? The whole logistics of that. He was very, very concerned about it. Oh. Good freaking Lord. What I should have done for this episode, and in hindsight, maybe I'll go back and re-listen and give people a count next week on how many times I said something about let's try to get us back on track, or like to try to come back to the point of the episode or the title. I tried so hard to make sure that Joe wouldn't have a terrible time going, I can't use any of this because it's on.
It was my job.
Yes, but
I was a terrible producer.
Well, okay, so we had producer Josh. So do we want to blame him for some of that?
Yeah. He showed up at the end. Did you catch that?
Yeah, he did.
He did. Yeah. He was great. But I did. I'm just kind of like, okay, if you leave us all to our own devices, there is no staying on track.
No.
For anything. So
and I knew that.
So my thought was like, let me just try to like help out and make sure, because my big thing was, I was so worried we were just going to be all over the place and you wouldn't have anything you could use for the episode you wanted. So I'm like, let me just try to rein us all in. And I'm like, instead of doing, I kind of did it, but I ended up just making fun of myself for saying, okay, to tie this back to bottle shares, which it was, listening back to it, oh my God, it was great. It was absolutely great.
It was a lot of fun, and thank you for the invite.
Yeah.
It was a great time, and you were great hosts. And I mean, not that anybody worried about that, because we knew you were going to be. And the podcast, I think, turned out a very fun representation of the fun that we had. Was this your longest episode? Because it clocked in at about like an hour and 40 minutes.
There was an episode that we did with Brock. That was about an hour and 40 minutes. It was. So it might be the longest. It might
episode.
Be the longest.
All right. I'll take the win. I'll claim it as a win, and we'll take that.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask it to get
back on track.
No. When you started and now you're at 100 episodes, and I don't think we talked about this very much at all in the podcast. What was exactly like you expected, and what's been absolutely not at all like you've expected in your 100 episode quest on this podcast with the podcast?
Yeah, so having a marketing background, I knew that any content creation it's difficult. It's difficult to keep up. It's difficult to it's a lot of work on the back end. Like, I do custom thumbnails for the episodes. I do social media posts. I do Photoshop. We have a website, so I have to keep that. You do the editing
of the podcast?
Yeah, I do the editing. And I know all the I have the technical skills for that, but it's time consuming. So I had no idea that we would make it to 100 episodes because of the small kids or whatever. So I was kind of that's probably a surprise for me that we would make it that far. There hasn't been any. It's been fun.
Did you find
there hasn't been any?
Did you find it easier to keep doing episodes? I mean, and there were some breaks. It wasn't every single week. There was something. Sometimes there were, a week or two where
kids get
just
sick.
with life, kids get sick. You guys get sick, vacations, whatever. Did you find it easier or harder than you thought to keep making episodes? Because a lot of times, I think Gnome called it podcast fade, to where life happens, you miss a week, and then something else happens, and then maybe you end up missing 2 weeks, and then slowly you do one episode a month, and then it slowly
that's the trap that you fall in.
Right. Did you find it easier to keep doing content than you thought, or was it sometimes a struggle to where you're like, if we're going to put something out, we need to do this, otherwise it's not going to happen at all? Does that question make sense?
Always the family comes first. So
sure.
if something goes on, I'm not gonna kill it. We're not gonna kill ourselves to do an episode. Mm-hmm.
But did you find that it was easy on those weeks for the next week or the next time that you were able to?
There hasn't been any.
We're excited enough to kind of. Okay,
there hasn't been any fatigue on that front, which is, so to me, going into it, having that experience in the professional world of doing content. Understanding what it entails, the strategy and stuff. I think knowing that hill that you have to climb going in, that's helpful because it
makes sense.
It helps you understand what it takes. And you can put in as much or as little as you want. Like I know you guys do. You probably do automatic YouTube to Facebook. You don't even have to post it, probably.
Right, yeah. We go through Podbean, so we just check the boxes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
But it's whatever you want to do. It's how much time you have and how much time you want to put in.
Right, and a lot of it is sometimes starting because you have to submit your podcast to all the different places you want people to be able to find your podcast at. You have to, research if the host that you have can do things like automatically push to Facebook, YouTube, to, wherever, or are you going to have to do that manually? And I think some of that, the time that you got into podcasting was very close to when Marco and I got into it.
Yeah.
We were lucky enough, the three of us, that we had enough resources, even just locally, that were doing podcasts that knew kind of what was going on we weren't going into it blind, or at least that's always my take on it. Like, I knew that when we started, we already knew from being lucky enough to talk with, the Gnome, like, hey, if we want to do this, what are some things we need to be aware of? And, just the internet. I mean, if you want to look up, what are the downsides of starting a podcast, you have all that information to where understanding some of those things, like, well, you're going to have to spend time submitting it to the different places you want it to be on, or, do you want it to be able to auto-upload to YouTube, to Facebook, to wherever. And so I think some of the challenge of it was removed, or at least it wasn't a surprise.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you said, there's still effort that has to go into either, like for us, we don't have to come up with a topic for every episode. It's just the podcasts that are out there. So it's kind of easy in that respect, where for you and Caroline, it's, what beer do we want to talk about, what beer style, or, what family event, or what, like you have to come up with an actual idea for a topic for what you want to do. And the fact that you've been able to do that for, coming on 101 episodes now is so freaking cool. And I am so beyond excited for you guys.
We've never had a shortage of ideas.
Good. Good.
Which is also surprising, I think.
Do you have like a big notebook or whiteboard or something, or like some kind of form or document? You have a
Google
Google Doc
yeah.
with all the ideas. I love that. We've tried to do that for like bonus content ideas and all that, and it's tricky. It really is. So huge kudos to you guys for
sending me
a
Google Doc's a bad idea.
Yeah, that's technology. Marco kind of struggles sometimes.
It's nice because you can both edit it at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Very, very true.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah.
So to pull from one of the main jokes from episode 100, to get kind of back on target here and talk a little bit more about the episode, which was actually my next note that I had written down, is I tried so hard to keep things on track, and it just turned into a big joke. And I say a big joke in like a positive way. Like, I don't think anyone was like, Julia, just shut the fuck up and let us talk. Just stop. But it was.
I don't think anyone
funny.
Thought that.
No. I don't think so. But I think that it just became funny because it's like, boy, we're going off the rails, and Julia's just like, okay, let's try try to
trying to be the mom.
Oh my God. One of the fun things that we talked about for a bit, this wasn't a huge part of the episode, was to all the breweries, disclose your ingredients on the bottle. If not all of them, the major allergens, stuff like that. And that was a pretty detailed topic, because I forget what beer it was, but we were going to open something, and Marco, you're like, yeah, it sounds great, but I can't have it. And I can't touch it. And we're reading. Oh, it was the one of the Milwaukee beers that I brought, because there was absolutely nothing on the label that told you anything about it.
Yeah.
So everyone was looking up, like trying to look up on Untapped or their website, like, can anyone find what's in this beer to see if it's going to kill Marco or not? And I don't think we ever found anything that was solid enough to where we felt like Marco could have some. So breweries, and a lot of the ones locally do a decent job of at least listing the allergens or the major allergens.
So as we're recording this, Craft Brewers Conference is going on, and I believe it's Nashville right now.
Correct.
Cape or not, one of the pretty prestigious beer writers is there, and did tweet out a series of tweets, rule-making projects that we do as the Craft Brewers Association know the TTB will undertake. Mandatory allergen labeling on alcohol, mandatory alcohol facts labeling, i.e. nutrition labels, ingredient labeling. Expect more on these next year.
Okay, cool.
So at least
it's moving forward.
Nice.
Yeah,
at least the push to that is happening.
Good.
So that's the national, the government pushing a rule for that.
That's the Craft Brewers Association pushing for that.
Pushing to have that on the labels that the TTB has to approve. That's not the TTB saying we're going to start requiring.
Exactly.
That. So okay, so it's still not going to be a government requirement, but if you're part of the Craft Brewers Association, they're probably going to strongly push that all of their members do that, which, I mean, that's fair. I mean, at least an effort is being made. And I mean, if it turns out that people stop buying X beer because they don't have any ingredients on their label, well,
it's not even stop buying. It's they're not going to be able to put it out. They want the TTB.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
They want the TTB to require it.
I see what you're. Oh, okay.
So they're lobbying to the
Craft Brewers. The Craft Brewers Association is wanting the TTB to require
that. Okay. The way that I interpreted what you said was, the members of the Craft Brewers Association are going to want to require that for their members to put on their bottle, and they will hope the TTB then requires. Okay, I misunderstood what you said there. Okay.
At least that's my understanding of the tweet itself.
Sure. we could all be wrong. You never know.
Hey.
You never know.
Let's see. There were some very strong feelings, kind of on the subject of ingredients. Mushrooms. Very, very strong opinions on that fact.
Yes.
Don't call something a pepperoni pizza if it includes mushrooms.
No, because it's pepperoni and mushroom pizza.
Right.
That's what that is.
Did you guys ever find out the name of that pizzeria so we can all call them and give them hell for something that wasn't even part of our...
God, that was in 2015. I don't even know.
You know what? I hope they close if that's how they're going to run their pizza place.
Hey.
No, I don't want any small business to close unless they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing.
Mushrooms on things that are not supposed to have mushrooms on them.
Yes.
I mean, it's simple.
You could kill someone.
Like somebody ordered a cheese pizza and they toss mushrooms on it. It's like, what the hell is this? It's a mushroom pizza now.
Right.
Oh, no, but we had extra mushrooms. Yeah, well, give them to somebody else. Give them to someone who ordered mushrooms.
Give them to someone who cares.
Very strong opinions.
We always have very strong opinions on this podcast.
Napa Valley is like you have, I guess I can disclose this, but we went to Napa Valley on our honeymoon and San Francisco. And Napa Valley it's like elevated food, kind of like French food. I mean, it's very similar to that. It's like
it's kind of like the places that
say that
San
Francisco had a lot of rice-a-roni.
San Francisco was good food too.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like the place that charges you like $19 for a burger because they put an egg on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like an egg doesn't need to be. It's delicious. I have no problem with eggs on burgers, but you don't need to do that. You don't need to put mushrooms on every pizza.
And that kind of food, they tend to regard mushrooms as like a delicacy, I guess.
I can buy a thing of mushrooms at Kroger for like 99 cents. They are not a delicacy. I mean, I know certain mushrooms.
Yeah.
I mean,
black truffles, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's like I guess they just don't think about it because they assume, and that's the problem. They assume.
Right. Yeah. It was still a really interesting part of the night that I only remember bits and pieces of. Let's see what.
I'm glad that it was recorded. That way you can remember it.
Yes, it was all kinds of great. Did we finally expose the true original producer David during this episode? You definitely need to listen to find out because we know that Joe and Caroline are snitches sometimes.
I know.
And
What's up
this
with that,
was
Joe?
this was no different. So if you've ever questioned the actual existence and identity of the OG producer David, episode 100 of Craft Parenting Pod is for you.
Exactly.
Let's see. I only had 2 other notes on this, and then we can kind of keep discussing stuff about how freaking cool it is that you guys hit 100 episodes. One of the more serious topics that we talked about was was it COVID or something else that changed the momentum of bottle shares?
Yeah.
Such as ordering online for your releases, pre-ordering your releases. We were talking in the show that it seemed like those bottle shares were starting to taper off anyway because people were starting to do releases 2-3 times a week in the middle of a week, like a Tuesday, a Wednesday release, where people are like, we can't do this.
Yeah.
So I think that everyone was correct that they started not being I don't know if they were falling off, but they weren't the same, but then COVID
We go into it on the pod, but I mean,
yeah.
I guess to sum up essentially what I was trying to convey is I think that COVID was the stake through the heart. For that, and
a lot of it out of necessity. People still needed to sell their beer, so doing it online, doing the pre-sales, just show up whenever you want to pick it up. It had to happen in order for those places to continue to sell that product. But then once people had that convenience, and they're like, hey, I don't have to show up at a brewery at 6 o'clock in the morning, wait in line outside depending on the weather for who knows how long, for a chance to get some bottles, and as long as everyone ahead of me doesn't get the full allotment, I can just order it online. Granted, it still might sell out before you can get your order placed, but there's much less risk involved. And once you order, it's like, well, I can show up anytime within the next week or 2 to get it. It did remove a lot of the reason to have those bottle shares and to bring those muffin tins out to breweries for straw events and what have you. But I don't know. I think that people are starting to do them again, but more in their own homes, like more kind of like what you did for the 100th episode.
I've seen some pictures in the beer groups lately. Mm-hmm. I don't remember which one.
I know. It's like, did I see it in this group, group, that group? Was it in individuals' posts that I'm friends with, but that's also in all these other groups, and it all blurs together.
It does. There's so many groups now. But I did notice that people have been gathering more at the individuals' homes.
Right.
And on the topic of COVID, I think Listerman Listerman started doing the weekday, and Listerman to me is the catalyst for the beer. Or it was the catalyst. It was one of the main beer shares.
Yeah, I say one of the big three. Listerman, Braxton and Streetside.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So, and once they moved, I think they were trying to be more ambitious, maybe do more sales or whatever. So they were doing, Tuesday releases plus Saturday releases, like during the same week sometimes.
Right.
And it just became too much. And then COVID, kind of like Mirko said, stake through the heart.
Yeah. Do you think they'll come back? Do you think, from the ones that that you and Caroline went to, do you think they'll come back? And if they do, is that something that, and I'll ask both of you, is that something that you guys would want to participate in again? Like the old school, you're, sitting in a camp chair in front of, Listerman or Streetside 2 hours before this release with a bunch of people that have like little plastic cups or, their muffin tins or whatever, just sharing beer. Like, is that something that you think is or could come back? And if so, are you interested in doing those anymore?
I didn't participate in line culture previously. I don't plan on it in the future. I'm not saying never. If something comes up where it's fun and interesting to me, I would. I also would not, and I don't scoff at anybody who would want to. If that's what you want to do, go ahead and do it. I don't know, given the efficiency and just the way that you can spread things out now, I don't know if any brewery really wants that sort of release or approach in their business model. And if they do,
it was a lot of work.
Good for them if you do, but I don't know. And if you want it and you can make it happen, great. But if you just want to release something and have it as it currently stands, or you can go online, you can get an allotment, you can show up over the next 5 days and pick it up or whatever, that works too, because then what happens is, you can spread it out to sort of a more typical schedule cadence. If you're planning for something huge on a Tuesday morning, it's a lot more difficult too, because I know, just speaking from running a tap room, if you want to schedule a release of something that's going to be extremely huge on a Tuesday morning, most of the time your slate of bartenders only has one or maybe two people, including the GM, that are able to be behind the bar. And so if you're going to do that, you're causing a bottleneck and a stress on a business that is really not set up to have that kind of
or that's even necessary.
It's not necessary.
Joe, what are your thoughts?
If Listerman, my thoughts on that are, my life has changed dramatically since, COVID.
Sorry about that.
With two kids. We had Lily.
Congratulations on that.
We had Lily before COVID, but, 2018, 2017, when, we did participate, we only did like maybe twice, 3 times. I don't think that's feasible for us now, unless we get a babysitter, which who's going to babysit our kids at,
6:30 in the morning. Hey, so we can, go out
unless it's an
wait in line.
overnight.
Right, yeah.
Which is hard to schedule and stuff. But if Listerman, tomorrow said, hey, we're doing, Checkout Day, just like, in the old days. I don't know that, the people would show up necessarily. I think people have moved on.
I think that there's still a good amount of people that would. I don't think it would be the same as it was. But I think that there are still a good number of people from, kind of those, old school days of the bottle lines.
The younger generation is
right.
There.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. It would be more of the more old school, the people that we remember the days when we would sit outside at the butt crack of dawn waiting for this and all that. I think there would still be a small subset of the beer community that would still love to do that again. Not as frequently as it used to be, but that would still love to re-experience that a few times. I don't think it would ever get to be the way that it was, to where you would have lines for Fiona that would go half a mile around the block. And obviously not every one of those people are participating in a bottle share.
Right.
But you also have to think about, for, like what you said, Mark, the strain on the business for doing it at a time like that where you have to be there. You have to, you only have this window of time to potentially get the beer before the allotments run out, that type of thing. If you can do what you're doing now, like what I did for Sonder and Family Traditions, I was able to get the bottles that I wanted online. I don't remember if it was a full week that I had to pick it up at, but it was something to where I could go and pick a time that worked for me to go get those bottles. And because I didn't feel like I was sitting at a brewery at 8 in the morning, I could just go up, and we actually recorded up at Sonder. That was the thing we did there. I was able to go up and just get my bottles and relax and have a beer without feeling like the place is packed because everybody that wants this beer is here at the exact same time.
And what did that eliminate from the previous experience? It alleviated having to be there at before dawn. It alleviated having to be there and
it worked around my schedule, not theirs.
Yeah. And you missed out on a bottle share out in front of the place, which again, I'm not trying to be the fun police. It's not legal.
No.
And so I don't know if you could if the brewery could get in trouble for that.
Yes. I don't know. Would it be the brewer? Or would it just be because you're
brewery.
on? Well, but if you're on the sidewalk, if that's considered public property, would that be the individuals? Like how?
It's not though.
Okay. Again, these are all the legalities that I don't know, so that's why I'm asking.
Like a place at Sonder, that's their side. It's the public sidewalk. Is not public. That's
I was
sidewalk.
thinking Listerman. I see what you're saying for Sonder, right? If you're
that. If there is indeed a patio area, there is a distinct line where
correct between the patio and
you are drinking on the
sidewalk, which now is
city
public,
property,
which is how Gnome got arrested. Fun story.
True. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Where he be at?
I don't know. He's probably working or taking care of the horse or something. I don't know.
Making spaghetti.
Most likely making spaghetti.
Yeah.
Horse.
From Weekly Pint last night.
I missed it.
Yes, he had a horse galloping around upstairs, so
okay.
he may be taking care of the horse. And Gnome, if you're listening to that, you know that I mean that in like the best way possible.
All right, we'll talk about it later.
We'll talk about that one later. So, Mark, you said that bottle shares and stuff that not really your thing particularly.
They never were. But
here's a situation for you like that. I would be curious. What would be a situation that might make you go to one, even if you're not participating in the bottle share? Let's say Sam Adams for a Utopia's release. They said, hey, we're releasing it on this day. The doors are going to open at this time. You have to do this in person. And we'll just pretend that legally, whatever, they were okay with people waiting in line and sharing stuff and whatever. Is that the type of release that you would consider going, I might experience waiting in line for 2-3 hours for the chance to get this for something like that?
That might be the only one.
Okay.
Possibly.
Okay.
And I'm not even all in.
So on that, right? Okay.
I'm just saying, just maybe.
Okay.
I love all the beer in the city. Mm-hmm. There's almost no beer in the city I need to line up and get.
That's fair.
I mean, I'm not being a curmudgeon.
No, not at all. I feel like that now.
Get it or not. And a lot of times, these beers are things that I can't even drink anyway.
Right.
And so I'm not the audience for a lot of that, and I admit that, and that's why I say anybody who wants to do that, more power to you, please. But a lot of these things that you're going to line up and get is not something that I can drink.
Right. And I used to be that way to where I don't want to miss out on this because it's going to be a limited thing or it's not going to be around forever, whatever. But yeah, anymore I'm kind of like, there's going to be something else in the city that is similar enough to this that I don't feel like I'm missing out as much as I used to.
That's another thing too. There's just so many breweries these days. Like back
so much good beer too.
And even Listerman has expanded. They have probably a few more tanks. And then they did back in 2015. I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
All these places have expanded. So their limited release quote is much bigger than it was before.
That's
kind of
true.
like the zombie dust syndrome that we talked about.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Now it's gathering dust on shelves. It's going out, it's going out of code.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else do I have here? Super sour beers. Sour. We all went, well, not all of us. Some of us went, Boston through a small part of the podcast. But, man, that was such a fun night.
It was good. It was amazing. It was a really great
time.
And
it turned out to be a great podcast. I was worried that we were just so completely out in left field, right field. We were beyond center. We were all over the place. And I was like, I'm so worried that Joe's going to go, there is not enough on target here for us to do an episode. And we're going to have to redo the 100th episode somehow, some way.
I'm not going to speak for
amazing.
Joe, but I feel like
amazing.
Anybody who listens to Craft Parenting Pod on a regular basis, they'll enjoy it. And I feel like anybody who is going to listen cross-platform to any of our platforms will enjoy it as well.
I would agree. So, Joe, do you have any... What are the next 100 episodes of Craft Parenting Pod going to be like? Like, what are your plans for the future of the podcast going forward?
Yeah, hopefully more guests.
Nice. All right.
I think we have the space in the basement at least. We have the new house or whatever. The only issue with that is, babysitting. But I think in the next couple episodes we have quite a few guests lined up.
Cool.
Awesome. That's going to be fantastic. Cool. Yeah.
We need to figure out the sun here now during the summer because it's beating on my back and it's shining
like in my face.
Like I'm in kind of the perfect place here, but it's, I don't know. Joe's going to have sunburn on like half of his face, and it's going to be terrible. He's going to be blind in one eye from the sun going directly into his people.
Not on the podcast, Marco. I'm sorry I made pizza pinwheels with cheese.
Oh, God, that was funny. So Joe and Caroline, like they made food, like it was such an amazing setup.
Cake and all kinds of stuff.
And one of the things that they made were these pizza roll-ups that were absolutely delicious, but they had cheese on them. So
and then I went back upstairs.
So Joe's like, hey, we actually have some more dough. Can you have this kind of dough? And Marco's like, yeah, that should be fine. And you said, can I make some that don't have cheese? It's basically just going to be, this sauce, this, this croissant, this roll. And the pepperoni. Marco's like, yeah, sure, that'd be cool, but don't make it big. And he was like, no, we got this. So you made him walk downstairs.
I autopiloted it and I put Parmesan on
cheese on him, and Marco's just like, nah, I'm fine. Oh my God,
it's a nice thought, but
it was.
Again, I don't. I appreciate everything. I appreciate the hospitality.
I also appreciate that somehow we didn't set off the smoke detector for the basement oven.
Yeah.
If you guys get an opportunity to record with Joe and Caroline at their new place, they have a full second kitchen in the basement.
Yeah.
Including an oven that doesn't vent out anywhere except for into the basement.
We haven't turned it on.
Have them make pizza pinwheels for you.
Oh, man. It was so much fun. It was absolutely amazing. So plug everything that you can, that you want to for your episode, and then we'll take a break, and if you have time, we'll just get another beer and hang out for a little bit before you have to head out.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that you have as much time as you want to say what you want about your podcast, because it's awesome.
So we are the Craft Parenting Podcast, a podcast about two Cincinnati craft beer lovers with a parenting problem. I podcast with my wife, Caroline.
I'm sorry, that's 1, 2, 3. Caroline!
And we talk about parenting and Cincinnati craft beer, or any craft beer, really. But so we're parents and we like to drink, and we're just trying to get through that. We have 2 little kids. So we talk about all of our adventures and craft beer and parenting life.
Awesome. And where can people find you and your podcast?
Everywhere that podcasts, you get podcasts, and we have a website, www.craftparentingpodcast.com.
Awesome. And you are Craft Parenting Joe on Instagram.
Yes.
Craft Parenting Pod on Instagram or Craft Parenting Podcast on Instagram. I don't remember.
Podcast.
Yeah.
On
I know I
Instagram
follow it.
Facebook.
I don't, Okay.
Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Awesome. And you're putting all your episodes out on YouTube as well?
Yes.
Cool.
And I've been trying to figure out video.
Oh, my God. It's a nightmare. If you figure it out, let us know.
Yeah, I'm trying to do like these solo videos, but I need something to talk about.
Because you are afraid of technology. Or no, you're afraid of the future, not technology.
I'm afraid of artificial intelligence in particular, yeah.
And self-driving cars.
Yes. So I've had issues recording on all these things. All these, I think the latest episode, I was recording in the soundboard plus the computer.
Oh,
so
man.
there was like an echo that I didn't catch.
Gotcha.
But
we love what you guys are doing.
I'll figure it out one day.
All right. Well, thank you so much for showing up. This was awesome. I'm glad we got to talk about your podcast with you.
Yep.
It would only be better if Caroline would have been here.
Shoving a mic in my face.
Right. We kind of didn't give you a choice. We're like, hey, if you walk in, you're talking, you're going to be recorded.
Definitely.
Everything you say can and will be recorded and held against you. But yeah, good times. Let's take a quick break, hang out with Joe until he has to head out, get another beer, and we'll get back to talking about a couple more podcasts.
Sounds good.
All right. All right, we have made it back. Thank you again so much to Joe for stopping by and recapping his own podcast with us.
Yeah,
a lot of fun. Congratulations again to them on 100 episodes. Thank you again to them for not kicking us out after the first 20 minutes where we were just beyond off track and down so many rancid rabbit holes.
And thank you for the birthday beer.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joe. Caroline, don't be too mad at Joe for buying us lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we have 3 more podcasts to cover, so let's start knocking these out.
Let's get on it.
We have the Brewbound podcast, Cincy Brewcast, and the Weekly Pint. I'm thinking, and let me know your thoughts, of doing Brewbound next because that's a national one that we've never talked about before. Yep. This was their episode that released. I couldn't find an episode number, but it was released on May the 3rd. Rhinegeist leaders discuss leadership shakeup and their path forward. So if you haven't heard by now, Rhinegeist has ousted their CEO. They have a new interim CEO. They're still trying to figure out what they're doing from a leadership perspective. And this podcast had co-founder of Rhinegeist, Brian Golding, and interim CEO Adam Bankovic on to discuss that. And I'll say kind of right up front something that you and I talked about in our pre-production meeting. The interview was fine. There were some interesting points, but a lot of it still felt like more of like the press release. They didn't really get down into the nitty-gritty, which I didn't necessarily expect them to. But I wanted them to. I wanted to hear more about the impact and the decisions because Rhinegeist is making that move into being fully employee-owned and how the employees played into this and how, they were taking the change. Was it the employees that said this, current CEO isn't doing the things we want, or were the employees involved? This episode didn't talk about it, but it was still a really cool episode to listen to. So
I was interested.
Let's talk about it.
I was interested to listen, and then yes, I came away with feeling like a lot of journalistic, inquisitive questions that went deeper just weren't asked. Mm-hmm. And Brewbound is a podcast based off of their industry. I'll just call it periodical. Mm-hmm. So these are accomplished beer writers. I'm certainly not going to, in any way say that the interview was bad. It wasn't. But it was I think it was very easy as far as...
They were softball questions.
Yeah, and they were just, let's be honest too, in the sense of if we wanted harder questions with more answers, we weren't going to get them from them.
No,
not at this point.
And everything,
not at this
everything's
point in
still
the
new
transition.
enough. Exactly.
He's the interim CEO is still only 6 months with the company.
Right.
And so they did ask a couple of questions that wanted to get a touch more insight, and it really didn't go that far.
No.
It was culture, something that they noticed right away. It was a culture, and they called it Geisty-ness or being geisty.
Yep.
And just leadership, being open and being vulnerable and being able to convey that you are listening and sensitive, and all of those things are great. But we didn't get into the meat and potatoes about why a change was made and why who they picked was picked and what the person that they picked on an interim basis, and they call it interim with a lowercase I, because it's a working job interview.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I don't love that term, because we're all on a working job interview when we're working.
Right. We're making sure that we can do the job we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and periodically you have a touch base, and then you have a discussion about performance, and
either your role is solidified, like, yep, we're going to let you keep doing what you've been doing, or doesn't look like this fits, and you're going to make another.
Even if the interim was dropped and it was just CEO, that's what the last guy was.
Sure, right, absolutely.
And the last person's gone.
So
it's to me, saying, well, this is a working job interview. Well, they all are.
Well, no shit, they all.
They all are. You have the job. Prove you can do the job. Take us in the direction we want to take us. By the way, what direction is that? What direction was it that we were on that we want to change? What direction was it on that we got stalled? What direction was it on that, was the wrong direction?
Right.
Right. I mean, any of those things could have been asked, but I have to say, of these accomplished beer writers, I don't think they were going to get anything.
I don't know.
That was not on the original script that Rhinegeist representatives decided they wanted to put out.
Right. Rhinegeist knows exactly what they are and are not going to talk about right now. Because, this is a week-ish? 2 weeks maybe old, this news?
Yeah.
They're not going to delve into the details yet. They're going to make sure that, that the stakeholders, for the company, that their customer base aren't going to just scatter and say, oh no, Rhinegeist is changing, ownership, everything's damned and Rhinegeist is going to burn to the ground, or whatever. They're making sure that the ripples are small enough before they go any deeper than what they already have, even if they do it all. To kind of go back to the very beginning of the podcast, I do want to let people know, if you start listening to this episode, the first
Amazing.
26 minutes or so of
fantastic information.
Amazing information, but it had nothing to do with Rhinegeist.
No.
So the first, again, 26 minutes, we're talking about some of their Brew Talks convention that they're doing in Tennessee. I believe it was part of the
craft. They hawk that shit every episode, just to let you know.
Just letting you know, it's in there. But they also talked about some beer news, like
Q1 for Boston
Twisted
Beer.
Tea, yeah, and Twisted Tea, and I did really like some of the talking points and comments that they brought up that Jim Cook made about innovation and like the malt beverage scene and that type of stuff.
It's an industry podcast, and it was amazing to get some of this industry information. Boston Beer in the first quarter posted a $9 million loss. The overall portfolio of beer is just a small fraction of what they actually produce.
Correct.
Truly was down. Twisted Tea was up. The shelf facings, the new set is going to have, I think they said, a 47% increase in set space for Twisted Tea. The
Twisted Tea's taking over the world.
The overall category for seltzer is going to shrink in variety from a shelf perspective. And so, but because Truly is one of the top two brands, they're going to get a little more shelf space. Now, does that mean more sales versus others? Not sure. But the majority of the increase came from the Twisted Tea category and seltzer, not from beer. And Angry Orchard as well, a small portion of that. But the Boston Beer Company, beer is like fourth.
It's low on the totem pole, right?
Yeah, because they're also making the Jack and Cokes or something.
The RTDs.
The RTDs. Yeah. So it was fascinating information, but that's what you get from an industry podcast, which is what they are.
Sure, right. I just wanted to make sure that if people wanted to listen to this episode, which they should, I mean, it is a good interview once they get to the Rhinegeist part. I just want them to start listening and going, okay, we're like 10 minutes in and no one's mentioned Rhinegeist once.
Right. It's because
they do like the industry news, their own personal kind of talking points about the things that impact, Brewbound and their, I don't say company, but their kind of brand directly. And then, again, out of this 56-ish minute episode, it's 26 minutes in before they get into talking to Brian and Adam. You had already said, Adam was already working at Rhinegeist, but only for 6 months as their chief commercial officer, doing like sales and marketing. So I definitely feel that he might have an idea of what's going on with the company from those perspectives. But at the same time, I feel like being with the company 6 months, how do you know what's needed? Like, you should still be asking, and who knows, maybe this is what he's doing. You should still be asking a ton of questions. How does this work? How does that work? What do you do here? What do you do here? To understand the company before potentially making any changes, which, again, is not something that they went into in this episode at all. They did mention that there were conversations with the employees on what they needed from leadership, and I don't know if that meant from like the CEO level or just managers, VPs, that type of thing. What level did they talk to these employees at? A lot of the conversation said we talked with leadership, we talked to the leaders of the teams. Whereas in previous statements from Rhinegeist about the employee-selected previous CEO, it sounded like employees from every level of the company had a chance to talk to people and really get involved. And I don't know if they did that same thing here. Who, like you said, who were the people that were making the noise about current CEO isn't doing what we feel needs to be done? What level of employee makes those decisions? And you're not getting that from this episode.
Well, what's really cool also is, I mean, for Julia and I being in this area as long as we have, I mean, Julia, growing up here, and me spending at this point almost 20 years here in this market, we got to see Rhinegeist start. We got to see the meteoric rise. There was a lot of things to it, right? It was the beer, it was timing, it was the space, it was the marketing, it was a lot of things from the beginning. Rhinegeist was meant to be a big business, and they are. The fact that they change a CEO is big, and it's big in the craft beer space across the country, because Rhinegeist has grown to be one of the 23 largest,
third or 24th,
largest craft brewery in the United States. So this piece of local news is national news.
Big news, absolutely.
It's national news in the craft beer scene. So this is really cool that this is something that big.
I do like that the interim CEO, and again, that's such a weird, stupid title, but it is what it is.
Either he is or he isn't, and right now he is. So just call him the CEO.
So okay, that'll be our truth. The current CEO, I do like that he is a Cincinnati guy. The previous guy was not local, but then at the same time, I always have to remind myself, Rhinegeist owners aren't local.
No,
like they're not in Cincinnati because they grew up here and they love the Cincinnati environment. They came here for other reasons and went, you know what? This would be a perfect place to open up a brewery.
And it was.
And it absolutely.
Still is, depending on how big you want to be.
They made a perfect choice, and I don't argue with that at all. So part of me, when I think about those things, wonders, is the Cincinnati craft beer community specifically something that makes a CEO that's not local less effective just because you don't really understand the community, the culture around Cincinnati, or does that not play into it at all? I don't know. That's kind of a level of understanding leadership that I will probably never have.
I'm not sure.
But it is.
I think.
But it is something that I'd be curious to hear that they did not ask in this interview. Like, for ownership, being non-Cincinnatians, how important was it in this change to bring in someone, interim basis or not, however you want to say that is local, that understands Cincinnati and the Cincinnati community and the Cincinnati craft beer community.
That is mentioned in the podcast that the owners of Rhinegeist didn't know of him or know him generally before Rhinegeist even started.
Right.
So it's there is something there, and that built and just grew bigger and found a role that fit this person. And
right.
I like that too, from a local perspective. With
promote up if you can, yeah,
and
promote from within, yeah.
And this city is putting together a lot of really great beer minds, and what we would benefit from is a lot of great business minds in the beer field. And so I think that's something that we should look for coming, which is people who've been in the Cincinnati craft beer scene, who've been able to make a go of it, or maybe who are on their second run somehow are getting to be in leadership positions at craft breweries around the city, and help those businesses grow to not make the same mistakes that maybe they previously made and have been able to successfully navigate, or find new ways and new opportunities for these businesses. So, that's good. I don't want to say that this podcast necessarily gives you too much insight as to a marketing direction or to a beverage direction or anything new in the pipeline.
Or even, like you said earlier, what issues they were seeing that they felt they needed a change to resolve. Like, you're not getting any of that from this.
No, but I think what you're going to come away from it is a positive feeling, if you didn't already have it, that that Rhinegeist is going to be always thinking about how to be better, and it does stem from their core beliefs, which it's certainly
be Geisty.
Be Geisty, yes, and it has an employee focus to it as well.
Right. We really don't have a ton to touch on because again, they really didn't go in depth into a lot of things. But Mark and I obviously have a decent amount of opinions about it. It's just not an episode that involves us to go into a 40-minute dissertation on.
Although we're probably
30
halfway
minutes.
there.
We're probably about halfway there. So I'll just kind of end this part of the recap with 2 other touch points from the episode. Listen to Adam's old man yells at cloud moment in this episode.
Yes.
that was pretty fun. And also, you learn through their conversation that there is no I in CEO.
Yep. That's good. That's good English right there.
It is very good English, but there is an I in interim. It just depends on if it's uppercase or lowercase,
That's right.
I guess. Right. Mark, I guess we already covered that. Neither of us have anything else for the Brewbound podcast.
We keep talking about how we don't have anything more.
And that's what makes our recaps go on for like 5,000 times longer than they need to. Next, do you want to talk about the Weekly Pint or the Cincinnati Brewcast?
All right, so we cheers and we
cheers.
Say that wrong. The Cincinnati Brewcast, the Cincy Brewcast.
Where is the gnome? We need a producer. We're severely lacking.
I don't know. I swear, I thought he was going to show up.
I'm telling you.
I don't know.
Letting us down.
He would have been directly in the beam of the sun, though.
He would have been
He was sweating his ass off.
With all that black that he wears and all that. Yeah.
Sweating his ass off.
Maybe that's why. Maybe he knew. Maybe he's like, you know what? I could show up there, but I'm going to be sitting in the sun if I show up there. Yeah.
Let's talk about Cincy Brewcast.
All right. This is Season 9, Episode 3, Is It Even Still Beer? Featuring two of his best guests ever.
Yeah. Yes, I agree.
He kind of hesitated a little too long.
No, I agree. Two of the best guests ever. Featuring yours truly, Julia and Marco.
Yeah, and we drank like 6 or 7 non-alcoholic beers. Too many. I agree with that. It was an interesting experience, and we're not going to have a lot to talk about on this just because we're talking about ourselves, talking about stuff, and that's just always weird.
So, as far as the beers go, you can listen, you can find out what we drank. There was a variety of non-alcoholic beers, by the way. It's because Higher Gravity Summit Park has a variety of non-alcoholic beers.
Yeah. If it's probably one of the bigger NA beer selections that I've seen at places, especially because you can get them as singles as well. Yeah. And you're not forced into buying a 4-pack, a 6-pack if you're not sure if it's going to hit that mark for you.
It's a good variety. It really is. Yeah. And I mean, you can listen to the podcast and decide whether we felt they tasted good or not, or what I think
I see like 13
favorites
singles.
Are.
Right.
It's quite a good selection.
Right.
And I'm glad. I don't want to do a 2-minute review of a 50-minute podcast, but we can really sum this up pretty quickly. I mean, and to not make it a 2-minute review of a podcast, I won't yet.
Okay. I have notes, so we can drag this out a little bit.
Our notes match.
They really do. The first thing that one of the first things that you learn in this episode are, believe it or not, women are allowed to drive.
Yeah.
And make decisions. Shocker. We're allowed to have opinions and make decisions.
I support all of that.
Yeah, and Noam does too. If you didn't get it from the conversation, it was a joke, but
went over your head. It was the highest level of comedy.
It really was. We went over what tasters are called in German or in Germany, because Steins are a thing. So what's a taster? Let's see, what else is there here. We tried to talk a little bit about how NA beers are made, because apparently a lot of that...
It's like 5 different methods.
Well, and a lot of those are still kept really close to the chests of the people that make them. They don't give you a lot of detail or information about how they make their NA beers, which I don't understand why...
I don't know either.
I don't know. I don't understand why...
If you made the information more readily available, easier to share, and it's one of those things where if the knowledge is out there and the equipment's out there and more people are doing it, all the costs come down, and then we can have a real an actual push for the industry to try and
make a beer that
create
tastes like a
and
beer.
Innovate and taste the way somebody wants it to taste. All it takes is a few smart people to actually find that, and.
Do you think, and this just popped into my head, so I have like 2 seconds worth of thought on this question. Do you think some of the big kind of beer baron innovators from that like Bruce guys have talked to would have, if they were still fully active in the brewing industry, Fritz Maytag, Jack McAuliffe, stuff like that, do you think that if they were still as involved today as they were kind of in their heydays, whether they knew it or not, would have figured out some way of making an NA beer that hits all those points and I'm not going to reveal them on this recap because it is a good episode to listen to, the things that we felt were missing or things that weren't exactly the same from a regular beer. Do you think that some of these original innovators could have us a little farther along in this process?
I think it's an interesting thought, but I think they were so wrapped up in trying to make sure that they accomplished their original pursuit, which the original pursuit was putting out great quality beer on a small scale and making it something that would make you want to have their beer versus big beer. And I think it's a wave, right? I think
for sure.
So I think
I'm just trying to say, like, take like
I don't think they thought about it for a second.
Well, no, and I don't think they ever did either. But what I was thinking is, you pick them up out of their moment in time, so they know everything that made them successful, whether history remembers it or not. So all the things where they're like, we were able to dial this in and figure out how to do this, and we were successful doing this. They're still at the top of their games, and you transplant them to today, to where it's okay. You've already checked all your boxes. You've already succeeded where you wanted to succeed. There's this non-alcoholic, I don't want to call it a craze, but this non-alcoholic subset of the beer community. Do you think that the things they were able to figure out to make beer what it is today, could that have been that extra? Like, do we have the same innovation today? I think we do, but I think it's different. I don't know. It's
I think the
weird.
Innovation is growing at light speeds faster than it ever was when they were around.
That's
ever.
fair, yeah. That's
because
fair.
they had to create the innovation, and now what's happening is there's so many businesses
but again, they had to
around
create
the innovation.
That. So could that mindset have pushed the NA stuff to be a little bit better than what it is now? I don't know. Like I said, it was one of those thoughts. I think part of what I said
on, I don't remember if it was our podcast or
it could have been any number of podcasts.
I think it was our podcast, but essentially what I'm saying, or my thought on that, is we're at the right time with the right brewers, with the right people in labs, with equipment, with yeast, with the way that grain is malted. I think we're at the right time to where over the next 5 to 10 years we're going to see amazing advancement in the way that beer is actually produced. Yeah. And for a small scale producer. And I think, but none of that would have happened without the build, the slow burn of what Jack and Fritz and everybody around that area started.
That makes sense.
And then the jump start or the new injection of passion and wave of brewers and people that want to be in this industry. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what we're in for.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be amazing. The innovations that we're still seeing with beer, even in the last just couple of years, cryo hops and so many different things.
So much stuff. And that's not to say people aren't going to do it the tried and true traditional method. I'm just saying I think that things are going to come out that are going to try or that are going to be able to make all this effort.
They're going to break those limits that currently exist. Yeah. That's fair. Yeah, so if you are interested in thoughts on non-alcoholic beer and a pretty decent discussion about it, listen to the latest episode of Cincy Brewcast. And I don't know, I feel like there is a slight uptick in the amount of podcasts that are coming out that are talking about non-alcoholic beers, as Joe alluded to. So definitely keep an eye out for that one next week as well. Was there anything else about Cincy Brewcast that you think we need to touch on?
Nah.
No.
Is that yours?
That was my half-ass, I started and then went, I'm like halfway into this Liam thing, and then it just...
Yeah. I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't have him come over on purpose.
No, we don't need him over here. He causes nothing but trouble. Let's move on to the last thing that we're going to talk about this week.
Okay.
The weekly pint.
Yep.
Yeah, we have always said that the cutoff for our listening to podcasts is they have to be out before the weekly pint is out. And now that the weekly pint is a podcast, makes it a little trickier because technically the podcast comes out later than the weekly pint itself. But I think that we're still keeping our cutoff for those episodes to be when the Weekly Pint originally airs on Facebook and Twitch and OnlyFans and YouTube. So typically 9:30-ish on a Monday. This was episode 168, beer news, brewery news, and excuses to drink together. And oh my God, poor Gnome. He needed an excuse to drink with people.
Yeah, he was struggling. I mean,
there were some technical challenges.
And there's some technical challenges.
Yeah.
That happens, man.
It does. And I feel that the core group of people that are there week in and week out for the Weekly Pint still look at it as just getting together with friends, hanging out, and virtually drinking together, and not something that has to be perfectly produced or perfectly put on. If there are weird video issues or sound issues or what have you, none of us care. Like, we're just like, you know what, if it doesn't happen, doesn't happen. But we still had a few minutes to chat with each other and all that. But things got sorted out. Noma, kicked a couple things and bashed a couple things with hammers, and the video and audio came back, and everything was great. And it really wouldn't be the Weekly Pint without some chaos.
Yeah.
Like, I think that if everything worked perfectly from the minute he started, it wouldn't be the same, That's it. That's his word. That's his word, chaos. That's his word. I will say that Elijah said that he was having some McBrayer bourbon, to which no mention, the bottle that he still has. He's like, I don't know if I'm allowed to open it. I don't know what the rules are. Dude, just call them up. Reach out to them and say, hey, do you need me to return this? Or can I open it and enjoy this? Like, just ask. Just ask. Otherwise, it's going to torture him on his bar until the end of time. Just reach out and say, hey, I still have this. Would you like me to return it, or how would you like, this to be handled? Take the guesswork out of it.
Put it in my belly.
There we go. Let's see. We talked about how he should hire Wooden Cast to be the next producer David. Because they are always, well, not always. I need to rephrase it. They never disappoint him with what they put out. He is always satisfied with what he gets from Wooden Cask, so therefore, they would be the perfect producers.
Sounds good.
Yeah, all right. Let's see, the drunk line number might change.
Yeah, I might have to update that contact.
Oh, no, same here.
Actually, if the way it's going to change, I'll just need to put a slash for a current contact I already have.
Yeah, so I know he said he wasn't going to put it to his personal number and put that out into the universe, but I mean, fuck it, I'm going to do it. So the new drunk line number is going to be Gnome's personal cell phone number, which is 513-867-5309. So put that in your contacts right now, and we'll see if there are any Podsequences for me kind of putting that out into the pods.
Way to go, Julia.
Yeah, sometimes I like to live dangerously. Did I ever tell you about the very first time I texted? Did I text or did I leave a voicemail on the drunk line and had the worst social anxiety panic moment of my life? Yeah, and it wasn't because of what I left. So I don't know what I thought. I just thought that it went into a Google Voice, voicemail kind of black hole, and he would listen to it or read it if it was a text or whatever. And they just kind of comment on it on either an episode or social media, but it was just something it was before we had ever met, anything like that. Well, not 10 minutes later, he responded back as a text, oh, it was about COVID, and I was, I wonder what Humble Monk's going to do because they're pretty new and they're pretty small, they're not canning, what blah, blah, blah. And it was just that immediate response, and I'm like, oh God, did I bother him? Did I, oh no, I don't know what the social norms are for this, but I didn't expect there to be this immediate conversation thing going on. I thought I was kind of speaking into this little black hole. And that wasn't the case, but yeah. And now look where we are.
Yeah. He has your address. And
he God. He randomly sends me clickers.
Yeah, he just randomly sends you things.
It happened once, and it was amazing and hilarious. Oh my God! But yeah, so keep an eye out for the drunk line number to call, and I think more people need to leave more messages on the drunk line outside of Weekly Pint.
I agree.
You know, I think that there needs to be more interaction.
I mean, I could leave more, but I think
you could.
I think we might talk enough for the
right. I know
for the fan entertainment.
Yeah. I try to do the chat on the Weekly Pint to just be part of the conversation. But I'm like, I talk enough as is. No one needs to hear me call in and say even more words than I already do. Let's see. What are some of the things that we talked about? Fabled Brew Works.
Yeah.
We mentioned this in our calendar episode. They have an open date, June the 1st. An estimated, or they're planning on potentially up to 23 different, I'm not going to say beers because some of them are meads, 23 different beverages potentially on their tap list, and that's a lot.
Yeah,
that's a lot. But it sounds awesome. I don't know why I am so excited about them opening. Like, I don't really
Good for you.
I don't really know a ton about most of the people involved. It's in Erlanger. It's not like it's something that's super close to my house. I'm like, oh my God, I can walk there. But there's just something about the branding, I think, that they're putting onto their brewery that just makes me go, I can't wait. I can't wait for this place to open, and I hope that it is beyond successful, and we don't have that much longer to wait. Now that I know that Jimmy the duck owner, the duck caretaker, Longbottom is going to be involved. Exactly. I mean, there better be ducks. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, you said
there
that.
Better be.
You said that in the point
ducks.
5.
Well, technically, you said it, but I wrote it.
I said it. Yes, you wrote it.
I didn't know which one of us was going to say it, but I thought that it would be it'd be pretty fun. Let's see.
Is he Jimmy Longduck? Is that
Jimmy Longduck? Well, Jimmy Longbottom.
Longbottom.
Yes. I think maybe I'll wear my Longbottom Bird Ranch shirt the first time I go down there, just to show my support.
Yeah.
Yeah. Founders. Fuck them. Not going to talk about them. Hopefully it's the beginning of their demise. So we'll...
yeah, I'm good with that.
They kind of get shoved into the same bucket as Brewdog to me. And I don't need to say any more about that. I'll let you say more about that if you want to, Marco. But no, I'm not participating in that conversation. And
no, anybody who wants to know what we're talking about, listen to the Weekly Pint, or look for recent Founders news.
Yes,
you can find it on the Googles, the internets, Twitters. I think maybe even the aforementioned Kate Bernat might have put something out about it. It could be somebody else.
Okay.
But yeah.
But it's not like you don't have to dig hard at all to find reasons to not be a fan of the ownership group and stuff. And I think that Gnome said
don't be racist.
Pretty much, yeah.
Don't be racist.
Yeah, just period.
And stop saying racist things on a microphone on TV as well.
Oh my God. Just stop and think before you open your goddamn mouth.
Or here's what's pretty easy. If you don't say it regularly, it's not going to accidentally slip out of your mouth.
Yeah. Well, that's not how I talk. That's not how I think. Well, then why the hell did you say it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Anyway, I was going to say on to better news, but this isn't better, but it's a different kind of thing.
A different kind of bad news?
A different kind of bad news. Brumari.
Yeah.
Ceasing to be a thing. Not that that's necessarily local, not that really impacts our community other than...
It was beer that was being brought in locally.
Yeah. I enjoyed what I had from them, but, it is what it is, so you can listen to...
It's very interesting that the new ownership group didn't want to continue with the old name. Yeah. They wanted to rebrand, rename. That's interesting.
Right. Another interesting thing is when a not staple brand, but when a brewery decides to completely change the style of... Was Ermel a core beer for Warped Wing? Or was it just...
I don't know.
Like he was
way more
Passionate about.
Yeah, he was way more, just emotional about it than I gave, any care about. But it's not that I don't care. It's just that it was never anything that I would have regularly, and do whatever you want with your brand, whatever. But he has an emotional connection to it, and now it's changed. Yeah. But those have been happening this year, and most of the time the reaction has been the same. Yeah, which is the public's just not happy about it.
No, and the public either kind of just grumbles and groans, but then shrugs their shoulders and continues to buy.
Yeah, you can't get the old one.
No,
I mean, going forward, you're not going to be able to get what you used to have.
Right.
So I mean, drink it or don't drink it.
Exactly. Let's see. Only other thing that I really had, because again, we don't want to over recap some of these like we typically tend to do. So
yeah,
and
we're
I
good
mean
for
we already had like very, very long discussion with Joe, which was freaking fantastic. And to avoid this being a 2-hour long episode about 4 podcasts, we'll just kind of wrap this one up with there was some talk again about something that doesn't directly impact Cincinnati craft beer or the craft beer community as much. Highwire is opening a Tiki Speakeasy at their bar down in Asheville. So I think that's cool.
It's fun.
I think it's an interesting spin on the brand. I tried to compare it to, is it sort of like what the Nine Giant Fermentorium is?
Right.
Same-ish. Well, I don't say same place. They're, separate not buildings. They're separate locations right around the corner from each other.
If you're an employee there, you can get from one to the other, can't you?
I don't know. I'm assuming so. I would really hope so.
I think if you're an employee there, you can get from one to the other. But if you're a guest or a customer,
you have to go outside and just like around the corner. But the connection that I was trying to make with Highwire and the Tiki Easy, I think it was called. It was kind of a weird name for what they were doing. It just. I mean, good for them. Like that would be cool. That'd be neat if it takes off and somehow Highwire's able to do a similar thing here in Norwood. Time will tell, I guess.
Have you been there yet?
No, not yet.
I haven't either.
Not yet. I have seen the pictures of the fretboard, not tap room, the patio that they just finished, and that's looking pretty phenomenal. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited. They mentioned on a podcast that we're going to be talking about next week, the Go Beer Cats podcast, that it was kind of interesting going to Highwire, which is open even though so much construction is still going on with the rest of the place. Like, if you want to go and watch, construction people, work, cool, might be your place for now.
Oh, man, that sounds like...
Well, we'll see.
Not what I
like watching construction equipment, like big... machines and stuff. So
Vincent does too.
It's so awesome.
Oh, he likes watching.
It's awesome. I will sit there and just watch a bulldozer, a digger, or whatever, just do its thing.
Who do we have on our podcast that they would take their kid to go watch construction equipment? Was that Mike Stokes?
Shoot, who was
Take their kid to just watch construction equipment.
It might have been Mike. Yeah.
I think it was Mike Stokes.
I think it was Mike. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's
that
awesome.
Would be perfect.
Mike, we need you back.
He could go and do that, and yes, we need Mike back as well.
Mike,
Mike, you listen to the pod.
Yeah, you know where we are. Show up on a Tuesday. We'd love to have you back.
Or hit us up. We'll let you know what we listen to, and we can recap podcasts.
Absolutely. That's all that we have to talk about today. As far as
it can't be. There's
no
way.
We can make up some more stuff.
That's what we did for 2 hours.
Oh yeah. We can make up more stuff for even more time if you want. Or we can let the nice people go on with their day. No, I'm dying. All right. Well, Marco, was there anything else that we needed to talk about besides the things that we just talked about?
I saw a stat from Craft Brewers Association in the United Kingdom about how many breweries have already closed in the first quarter of this year.
Okay. In the UK?
Just in the UK. And... Now, I don't have a stat for that for the United States, but long story short, I think you get the message. Go out, support your local craft beer businesses. Mm-hmm. These places employ people, some full-time, some part-time. Mm-hmm. Some of them, get their car payment. Some of them pay their electric bill. Some of them, this is their full-time job. Some of them, this is their career.
Right.
Get out there and support these businesses.
Yes.
And if you want them to be around, spend your money there. Because once it's too late and you say, well, I never went, or I never got to go there, or I wish I got to go there.
Don't wait until they say they're closing their doors to say, oh, well, I'm going to go now.
Yeah,
those last-ditch efforts.
Yeah.
I know you mean well, but they're not going to save.
And openings are fun. Openings are happening. Sure. We talked about openings coming up, and that's fantastic. There are more openings on the way, and there's more really fun, exciting stuff as places that have opened recently start to really get into their groove. And just so, but the big thing is get out and support these places.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's really all I have to say. Support your local craft beer podcasters, as we ask you to do, and please, let us know what you think, and hopefully you like it, and do all the things. Julia, tell them all the things.
I will tell you all the things. If you like what we've done tonight, tell a friend. First and foremost, just tell people about our show, and that helps out immensely. If you want to take it a step farther, you can like, subscribe, rate, review, share on all of your accounts, do all of those other things. You can follow us on social media. We are at Truth Beer Pod pretty much everywhere. All of our episodes, audio episodes, are posted to YouTube. We also do some video content over there on occasion. We haven't done one in a while, but again, we're working on figuring out better scheduling and ideas and stuff like that for that. Send us an email if there's something that you want to let us know about, but you don't want to put it on social media, truthbeerpod@gmail.com. If you want to support us on an even higher level, go to truthbeerpod.com. All of our social media links are there, as well as links where you can monetarily donate to us to buy us a pint while we're recording, or to pay for things like podcast hosting, website hosting. Those things are coming up again, because we are getting close to doing this for 2 years now, and those services are not free, or at least the ones that we use are not free, because we want to try to give you guys the best quality that we're able to. Other than that, Marco,
Julia,
what are you going to be doing next Tuesday?
Be here at Higher Gravity, recapping all the Cincinnati-based craft beer podcasts from this week, and the ones we told you from last week that we're going to cover. So cheers.
Sounds good. Cheers, man. We'll see you guys next week.